Welcome aboard the Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon podcast, where we're dedicated to helping first-time and experienced boaters find the right boat at the best price and ensure all boaters have years and years of happy boating fun because life truly is better on a boat. Today's podcast is sponsored by the First Time Boat Buyers Academy, so you can find the perfect boat at the lowest possible price and buy with 100% confidence. For a short video, visit boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/academy. Now, let's hop aboard and have some fun. Welcome to the Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon podcast. I'm your host, Captain Matt, and today we're talking to Mike, and Mike is in the Tennessee, Kentucky area. Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Good morning.
I don't have much to go on for what you're looking to talk about exactly. So tell us a little bit about your boating experience and where you're at and what kind of questions you would like to chat about today.
Well, I'm close to retirement, and I want to get into full-time boating. It's been years since I was a child, since I was actively on a boat and in my college years. And it's always been attractive to me. I'm at that point in my life now where I can get back into it and I can afford it, I believe. I do not own at this time. I'm in the process of watching the videos and learning about what to look for, what not to look for, what type of boat might interest me, what might not. I have a price point that I'm looking at. And from watching the videos, a lot of what I hear you talk about all the time is the relationship with a dealer if you're going to buy new and or a used boat from that dealer. And sometimes it's a little bit difficult, unless my skills on the internet aren't that sharp, to find out any information about a particular dealership. You hit reviews, and it's all just sales information about the particular dealers.
Yeah, for sure.
They're far and few between, you know. I'm not looking for dirt on anybody. What I'm actually looking for is fantastic things said about particular dealers. And even that is kind of hard to come by on the internet. So can you talk a little bit about how you go about, because the dealer relationship, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of things there that I want to cover because the first thing, especially if you're looking pre-owned, is, you know, most of the inventory out there pre-owned, depending on your exact budget, may not be at a dealer. So it's a dealer relationship is important. If you can find the right boat at a dealer, if you don't have a good dealer nearby or they don't have the types of boats or the price point of boats that you're looking at, then what you want to do is find a marine technician, a mechanic that can be your go-to and establish a relationship there. So boat dealers, the marine industry as a whole has a history of being very poor on getting their messages out there. There was 10 years ago, it wouldn't be unheard of for a big dealer to not have a website with their inventory on it. So they're very slow to adapt or to adopt any technology. Some of them are. So the best way to do the research and to figure out, is a dealer a quality dealership, is yes, go online, look at the reviews, see what people are saying. But what you really need to do is to actually go visit the dealership and talk to the people. Do you connect? And I always say, don't just talk to the salespeople, because their job is to get you to spend money with them. Go and talk to the service manager, talk to the general manager or the owner of the dealership, and you'll get a much better sense of how well you'll be taken care of after the fact. And those are the people that I like to talk to. And then the other thing is, go to the local marinas and just, on a Saturday afternoon, just chat some people up, or go. Are there restaurants? I know you're on Dale Hallow Lake. Are there restaurants?
There's plenty of people and plenty of restaurants. Yeah.
Yeah. So, go and have lunch or have dinner and just chat some people up on the docks. People love to talk about their boats. Most of them are gonna be favorable to the brand of boat that they have. Most people aren't going to say, oh man, this was a terrible decision. So you have to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, but they will talk about their dealer and their experiences that they've had, good, bad, previous dealers that they've worked with. And so it's much more of a manual effort on the research side in most cases.
Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. And I kind of thought that that's the direction you were going to send me
Yep.
for my investigation. So,
and so if you've listened, Mike, if you've listened to some of the other podcasts, Mark from Texas was on a couple weeks ago, and he talked about, he chose a dealer that was very local to him, and the location of the marina and the dealership was important. So think about it. Looks like Dale Hollow might be a pretty good sized lake. So, figure out where on that lake will you be, and start with those dealerships that are closer to you. Now, I'm sure we'll get into this in the conversation, but what type of boat that you're going to look at could determine, hey, is there a dealer nearby? And you can be a little less selective when you're looking pre-owned on who the dealer is, because it's more a matter of, do they have the type of boat that you're looking for at the price point and the budget that you're looking at? So.
Okay. Well, I guess, yeah, a lot of it, I guess in the back of my mind where I was going was the technicians and the service department. Because if you do wind up with a used boat, I mean, I think you said, make sure that your local dealer's got, a Yamaha tech if you're buying a boat with a Yamaha motor, or Mercury, yep, or vice versa. And how, are they accredited by Mercury or Yamaha versus, oh, I'm just a jack of all trades and I do it all, or,
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing you're right on the money, Mike, is one thing that's really interesting when I go to boat shows, or when I talk to or I'm at a dealership. One thing I like to do is talk to, I said, the service manager, but if you talk to a technician or to a yard guy, oh, you get the real scoop. I mean, those guys they'll tell you the good, bad, and the ugly. And they'll not leave out the ugly, because they're not salespeople. They don't have that mindset of, oh, this guy asked me a question and I'm gonna give him an honest answer. So if you can actually talk to the technician and say, hey Bob, what type of motors do you have the most experience on? Oh, well, we do mostly Yamaha here. Yeah, we're certified in Mercury, but we never see Mercuries. Or oh, we're really good with this, but we don't do very well with that. And you'll get a lot more detail. And, for a 6-pack of beer or a pizza, when you get really close to making your decision, you can get a lot of information from the yard crew and from the service technicians themselves.
Sounds like a plan. Okay. What are some of the other questions that I had off the top of my mind? What do you consider as far as a dealership being too far away? I know that's, I guess, an individual question, but I called one dealership in Knoxville, and they were just like, I'm not sure who I got on the phone, but he was kind of like, well, that's kind of far for us. And
yeah,
it just seems like, what is the average distance that people with healthy relationship with a dealership?
Okay, so there's two things. Is one, right now, dealers they just don't have inventory, and some of them, I think, are getting into bad habits, to a certain extent, getting rude to some paying people that want to buy boats because they just don't have much to sell. So if you get the wrong person on the phone, they could give you the brush off when, it's just somebody having a bad day or somebody that doesn't want to do the work. With that said, how far are you from Knoxville? I'm just trying to look on the map and see.
It's too far. It's,
2 hours, 3 hours?
Approximately
okay.
2, yeah.
Yeah, so that's, it can work, but that's quite a ways. In my mind, it would be too far for me, unless it was a special circumstance and they had, we had an agreement on if you're going to come to the lake. Now, with that said, you can buy the boat from that dealer and find your technician closer to home. When you're looking pre-owned, it's less important to have the dealer really nearby because you can use just a regular technician to do the work. It's when you buy a new boat and you have that warranty that they're the ones that are going to do the warranty work, and you're going to be hard pressed to get into the other dealer that sells that brand nearby. And now you've got that 2-hour thing to do, just a little tiny troubleshooting thing that's under warranty that needs to be fixed, but it's not a major issue. So if you're looking pre-owned, you can focus a little bit more on the boats that you're looking at, and then find that local technician. Again, going to the local marinas, going to the local restaurants, and talking to boaters that have the type of boat, the type of motor that you're looking at, and saying, hey, who does your work? How do you like them? How long have you been using them? How difficult are they to get in? How responsive are they? And now you can find, maybe a mobile technician or a smaller shop that you can develop a great relationship on whatever pre-owned boat that you bring home. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it does.
Okay.
And I kind of thought the same way. And more important with the distance on a new boat versus, and on the same note, if you're looking for a particular brand, there's only so many dealers for a particular brand that are close to you too. So
you usually got one. Yeah, you usually have one, maybe two in certain situations. But so you've got a little bit less choice, and that's why I tell people that are looking new is, well, there's some exceptions, but if you're looking at a mid-range pontoon, let's say, there's not much difference between one to the other in a price range. And on a $50,000 tri-tune with the 150, if they're priced the same, the quality is going to be nearly identical, and in a lot of cases the engine is identical. So that's where I go to the dealer, and maybe I need to express that a little bit better in some of my videos.
Okay, well, no, that makes sense. A Chevy, a Ford, a four-door sedan is a four-door sedan. They're going to be basically the same. It's his personal preference. And
you got it. Yep.
Okay. Now I have another question from, I found the top 100 dealers online, and I'm just kind of looking at the big boys who are like at the top of the list, and a lot of them are nowhere close to home, and I'm just kind of looking at how they deal just from online with their business and everything. And what I've kind of found out was a lot of these dealerships have parent companies that kind of own them too. Is that true? So if you look at MarineMax is the biggest. They're all branded MarineMax. Well, I take that back. Over time, they will all be branded MarineMax. There's 80 plus of them right now. And what they'll do is they'll come in and they'll buy a dealership that has multiple stores in an area. They'll let them run under their name for the first year or two, and then they'll turn them into ABC MarineMax. And then over another year, they'll take off that ABC Marine, which was their original name, and they'll turn them in just to a regular MarineMax for branding. But you have companies like One Water Marine, and I think in your area there's a Marine Sales that you may run across. And those, the parent company owns them, but they still operate under their original name, even though they're part of this bigger group. But the top 100 dealers, they go through, part of it is a marketing thing where they apply, and the Boating Industry magazine names their top 100 dealers, and they go through all these applications. And it's not always the biggest ones that are in the top, but the biggest ones have the biggest resources to fill out this huge packet of paperwork, and they can spend money on more things. So they have a little bit of an advantage. But they've gone through a process, and the third party in the industry has kind of identified these as, hey, they do a great job. But just because they're not on the list, to me, doesn't mean it's a dealership I would stay away from. Okay. With that said, I worked at a top 100 dealership when I was selling,
And I use that as, hey, listen, you can trust us because somebody else has already verified us. And there's a certified dealership as well from the Marine Retailers Association that it's a similar thing. They've gone through a process. They've gone through some training. Usually it's the larger dealerships that are able to invest the time and the effort in it. But they do typically have better business practices and will give their customers a better experience.
Okay. In your experience, I don't know, maybe I have like a little bit of a negative idea about this. When the big boys come in and take over the smaller people, they start making changes and it becomes more impersonal. Sometimes things change. Like you could have a great relationship with, a fellow or a technician or something like that, and the big boys come in and buy it and they make all kinds of changes and people aren't happy. Or is that not the way it works in the boating industry because it's so it's smaller, basically, I guess?
It definitely does. Now, to the extent, I think it depends on who the manager is of that area or that store. A lot of times what these companies will do is they'll come in and they'll buy it, but they'll keep the management in place. But they do bring in their rules and their bureaucracy. They're bigger. They've got levels of, CEO, VPs, regional VPs, and then your general manager, where before it was just, Jeff, the owner, made the decision. Right. It's what happened. The dealership I worked at not only was a top 100 dealer, but was acquired by MarineMax 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. And so the owner he made all the decisions. Once they bought him, he became the regional vice president of all of those stores. And so they ran it very, very similar, but there were still some things when I talked to the guys that were still there, they said, man, these things are more difficult and not good for the customers, but we got these advantages that are good for the customers and good for us. So it's a plus and minus. I think over time, as the original people kind of filter out, I think you probably will see a more corporate, less, I don't know if personal is the right, but less mom and pop feel. Okay. And I think that does change a little bit over time.
Okay, fantastic. Those were my basic dealership questions that I had. That a lot of it, I had an idea where you were going to go, and you just verified a lot of it. I got just some basic boat questions, if we can go in that direction.
Yeah, fire away, Mike.
Okay, well, I was, a lot of people that I'm talking to are saying you can get a used, runabout or something like that as your first boat getting back in, and at my age, and I'm leaning towards a pontoon boat, and in the back of my mind, a pontoon boat was always on my mind as being the most versatile thing. I'm not like a big car guy where I need to go flying down the street. Speed is important and power is important, but it's not. The versatility of a pontoon boat kind of sits well with me the best. So that's where I'm leaning. And my question is this: there's the tri-toon is kind of like the word of everybody wants a tri-toon. Everybody wants a tri-toon. And I know that it depends on what you want to do with your boat, but people are saying if it's not a tri-toon, it's going to have less resale value, and if it's not a tri-toon, nobody's going to want it in 5 or 10 years or something like that. Do you feel that way?
In my opinion, there's always going to be a market for a pontoon with a 50, with a 90, with a 115. That market of somebody that just wants to get on the water and cruise and doesn't really care about going real fast. They just want to pull the kids on a tube. Heck, even a wakeboard or skis, if they're a younger kid, is more than doable on a boat like that. I don't see that ever going away. What I do see is the tri-toons have taken over the traditional bow rider buyers. And that's where the segment is growing, but it's not necessarily shrinking too much in that smaller horsepower double tube pontoons. It's not like they're cannibalizing that. They're cannibalizing the fiberglass bow riders and deck boats. That's where they're taking market share from. So when you talk about what your lifestyle looks, that would give me the, hey, is a pontoon or a tri-toon better for you? So let me ask you a few questions, Mike.
Sure.
When you see yourself going out, and I always like to talk about in the First Time Boat Buyer Academy, this is part of the process I take people through, is what do you see yourself doing 80% of the time? Like, what does that look like to you? And I know you gave me some of the answers here, but I just want to get some more detail on it.
80% of the time will be cruising and or fishing, pulling up onto a shore, swimming in the shallows, picnicking, things of that nature. So that's 80% of it. I'm
Okay.
in my mid-50s. I'm all beat up from sports my whole life. Beat up from water skiing back in the day with crazy guys behind me at the helm.
Yes.
So, like I said, I'm not a 100 miles an hour down the highway type of guy, but I appreciate something that can do it if I need it. So
Okay.
I guess I'm somewhere in the middle a little bit.
Let me ask you about when you're out on the water and you're cruising, you're fishing, you're picnicking. How many folks are with you? Again, 80% of the time. What's your crew look like? Family, friends, whatever.
I'm thinking on average 80% of the time, 4 people, 2 to 4 people.
Okay. That the reason I ask that is because the weight that the boat has to carry has an impact on your speed. So if you're loading up with 8 to 10 people, man, that the extra buoyancy of the tri-toon makes a big difference on the speed that you're able to reach. But with 4 people, even 4 adults, let's say 150 pounds each, that's only 600 pounds, and maybe a cooler and a little bit of gear. With a pontoon, so double tunes with a 115, you're still going to be able to cruise at 20 miles an hour, maybe 22. You'll be able to get a top speed of, depending on the specifics, around 30 or so, which is fast enough to do some tubing, fast enough to do, wakeboarding, skiing on 2, slalom skiing for a lighter person, around 100 pounds or so. So your ability to move is about in that ballpark.
Okay.
When you think of that, does going a top speed of a cruising speed of low 20s, a comfortable cruising speed, does that feel okay to you, or is that like, man, I would really like to have the ability to do a little bit more?
To be honest with you, I'm a poor judge of how fast I'm going when I'm on the water.
Yep.
But if just cruising, yeah, I'm sure that's more than adequate enough. I don't know why anybody would. I mean, if you got to get somewhere fast, you got to get somewhere fast. But like I said, 80% of the time, you don't have to be somewhere fast, or hopefully you don't have to, because you're out there to enjoy it.
Yeah, you're not in a hurry when you're on the water. In my mind, that's my thought.
Right. You might be in a hurry if a storm is blowing in and surprised you or something like that. But I guess that would be rare, I would hope. So you're thinking a 25-inch pontoon boat, 25-inch tubes, and a 115 would be more than adequate. You could pull an adult on a tube or just a child?
You could do an adult on a tube. Now, like I said, with those speeds, and in my best boat captain on the water training, I've got a section that about water sports, and here's kind of the ranges of speeds that you can do things at. So tubing, you can put an adult on a tube and pull them around and whip them around at 20 miles an hour, which is a good time. It's not getting real aggressive. It's not what you did in college with your buddies and the guy driving was, trying to throw you off and get a good laugh out of it. But you can have fun on a 115, or we'll go by speeds because this will be easier. So I'm 225 pounds, and on a slalom ski, I'm not going to be able to get up with the 115. I'm going to drag too much, and I'm not going to get on top of the water. I would need a 150 or above to do that. But my daughter, who's 10, would wakeboard actually this year behind a 20-foot pontoon with the 115 on it. And it was simple. She could have probably done it with a 50, because she's 85 pounds, let's say.
Correct.
She's under 100 pounds. Her and her sister tubed and had a great time, and they're 10 and 7 with that 115. That was more than enough. And matter of fact, I had a lot of throttle left, even as they started to get a little bit more aggressive. So I think it's a pretty good option to keep your budget down a little bit. And you can do most everything. But you're not going to go 40 miles an hour on it. You're going to go in the 30s, low 30s, probably.
Okay. Because,
with 4 people on board,
it's not going to happen. Right.
Yeah.
The way I'm looking at this is, if I'm looking at the used market, if I come across something in the neighborhood or on Boat Trader or wherever I find something, I'm just going to ignore something less than a 115, or I'm going to ignore something less than a 90, because the engine that comes with is the engine you're going to get. And in one of your podcasts, you were talking about, you definitely don't want to buy something that, a year from now, you're going to be mad that you're driving around on it. You're going to regret.
Yes.
So in my mind, a little bit, I'm thinking, if I buy something with a 90, I might regret it in a year or two, when all of a sudden I do want to go faster and I can't.
Yep. So here's what I recommend in that type of situation. I just did a podcast that hasn't been released yet yesterday, with Chip from down in Florida, and we talked about this same thing. I want to buy it and I want to keep it for 10 years. And that's what I do. So I recommend it to him. If you go to boatsetter.com, or there's an app, which is even better, you can download on your phone, or getmyboat.com, or the app is good too. And they're a peer-to-peer boat rental. My guess is, if you plug in Dale Hollow Lake, in your area, or it looks like there's a couple other lakes that are nearby. If you plug that in, you're going to find people that are willing to rent out their own personal boat to you for an hourly rate. Now, it may cost you $100 an hour, but what it allows you to do is go get on a 22-foot with the 90, or a 22-foot with the 115. And just run it for the afternoon. It may cost you $400 to do it, but you're going to get a good time with the family. But more importantly, you're going to get the ability to make a decision of, are we going to be happy with the 90? Are we going to be happy with the 115? Or, man, I've got to bite the bullet, and I'm going to have to maybe save up a little bit more, or do something to get to that 115 and do the tri-tune. That's my personal cutoff for don't get a 150 on a double tune. Don't get a tri-tune on a 115 in most cases. And I think it would apply in yours, but go out and rent that boat for the day, rent a couple boats for the day, and it'll really give you an idea of how your family is going to enjoy it. If you're going to be happy with the speeds that you're getting, from the different horsepower options on the size boats.
That's something that's interesting. That's something I'm going to have to try out. So something that was kind of interesting. There's kind of like a no man's land of so a 115 on a pontoon is okay. If you're going to go with a tri-tune, you probably want a 150, and like a tri-tune with a 115 is kind of like no man's land.
Yeah, here's what happens is, and I'm not an engineer at all, but what happens is the horsepower of the 115 can get kind of the max performance on a 25-inch tune boat with lifting strakes. It's going to get its top speed there. Okay. When you put a 150 on that, you're not going to get the full level of performance of that engine on a two-tune boat.
Okay.
When you jump up to a tri-tune, the 115 doesn't have any more to give better performance. So you're not going to gain much there. The 150 is going to have a significant jump in performance between the double tune and the tri-tune. Now, I'm sure there's some science and engineering and physics behind that, but that's been my experience of actually running a 150 on a double tune versus a 150 on a tri-tune. It's significantly different.
Right.
So that's why I make that distinction. Now, there's some exceptions, and that would be, hey, we're going to put a lot of weight on the boat, but we don't need to go real fast, but we do have a lot of weight, so we need that extra buoyancy, but it's more of a weight thing. So if you said, hey, we're all 200 pounds, and we're going to put 10 of us on that boat consistently, but we don't really care about going super fast, then I would say maybe the 115 and a tri-tune would be okay. But even then, I would probably say if the budget allows, move up to the 150 and the tri-tune if you can.
Okay. Because, yeah, that's definitely, okay, that makes a lot of sense. If I was to go the new boat route, if I was going to buy one today, going off of the limited information that I have, today my opinion is I would buy something, a pontoon with lifting strikes and a 115, thinking that that's going to make me happy. And I think you just kind of confirmed that that's about the most you can get out of a 22-foot boat with 25-inch tubes and a 115. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, that sounds, if you go to the YouTube channel, one of the videos I did cruising is on that exact setup, a 22-foot boat with the 115, 25-inch tube lifting strakes. And I was cruising at, 2/3 throttle and cruising probably 20 miles an hour. It was perfect for, for what I was doing. And I think that sounds pretty close to where, what your day on the lakes would look like. Just some nice cruising, pulling off for a picnic, throwing the anchor out, maybe doing a little fishing, and maybe doing some tubing with some adults and kids. I think you would be happy. But again, invest that $400 on a fun weekend with the family, and test it out just to make sure, so that when you write that several $1,000 check or whatever the budget is, 20, 30, 40,000, whatever it is, that you're going to say, I can make this decision with confidence that I'm going to be happy 3 years down the line.
Okay. Now, so the boat that I just described with a 115, you're saying in 10 years that's still going to hold value?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. There's too many people that want to get into boating at a price point, and their budget only allows so much. And especially the way boats are getting so expensive on the new side. I think there's always going to be a market for a well-maintained pontoon that can do the water sports that most people are going to do. I don't ever see a time where that's not the case. So I would be totally comfortable with that purchase, knowing it's going to depreciate. You're not going to sell it for the same that you bought it for,
right.
But you're going to be able to sell it pretty quickly and easily, unless something drastically new comes out that's better. But it's just, I don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening.
Okay, fantastic. Another thing that I mean, just going around looking and reading and everything, the aluminum underskins, worthwhile to you on a freshwater lake?
Yes, absolutely. So here's the options that I would say you definitely want to add. 25-inch tubes for sure, lifting strakes for sure, underskin for sure. Those are the three that, yeah, you want to have those. what that underskin does is, one, it gives a little bit of structural support, but what it really does is when you're out and you're cruising 25 miles an hour and you hit a bigger wave, that the wake, all that water that splashes up in between those two tubes is going to be splashed upwards, and it's going to just skim right off that aluminum, and it's just going to flow right back, and you're not going to feel anything at all. What happens if that's not there is that water splashes up and it hits those cross members, and you feel kind of a jerking motion. It slows you down. And if you're cruising 25 and you hit some bigger chop, you're going to feel it. And it's going to be uncomfortable. And it's going to be very, very noticeable. And that's the big benefit of the skin.
Okay. So your big three are the 25-inch tubes, the lifting strikes, and an underskin for sure.
Yep. Yeah, those. And then everything else is, for just based on the conversation and the information you gave me, is maybe fishing seats. I'm a big fan of the Bimini top. You're on the Tennessee-Kentucky border, so, you could probably boat 10 months out of the year, maybe even all year round up there. And it probably gets hot in the summertime. I like a nice Bimini top. And then from there, probably the ski tow bar if some water sports are in your future. And then everything after that is, stereos and lighting, and, that's all just personal preference. But those are the things that come to mind based on what you said about your style. That, those are definite haves, and then maybe haves depending on how much fishing is going to be a part of your lifestyle. Okay,
fantastic. I guess the last question I had was the trailer.
Okay.
Buying used boats, people normally sell the trailer with them, unless or it's 50-50. How does that normally work?
If they have them, they're almost always going to sell them together. On your lake, let's see, I see Willow Grove Marina. There's a Safe Harbor at Holy Creek, Dale Hollow Marina. There's probably a good number of boats just on your lake alone that don't have trailers. They keep them in the water. Maybe they put them on the hard for the winter time, or store them away for winter. If you get the trailer with the boat, watch my how to inspect a pontoon trailer video. Just with a used boat, the trailer sometimes gets overlooked. Just inspect it, the bearings, the axles, the coupler, the lights, all that kind of stuff, the brakes if it has it. If it doesn't have one, the good thing is most pontoons are very, very similar. So it's easy enough to go and maybe find a used pontoon trailer, or to go to a dealer and buy a trailer, which on a 22 footer, probably double axle with the 115. I mean, you're probably looking at 4,000, 4,500 maybe, something like that. Just a ballpark for a new trailer if you had to buy one. But you can talk to some people up there. Just call on like a Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon, and a dealer should price that out for you pretty easily.
One of the things I saw, I was looking at one dealer. He was up in Minnesota. He just does a lot of videos, and I was just watching his videos. It seems like they're like heavy into a local trailer company in their neck of the woods. Is that common? Or do a lot of these guys get them from far away and they just have them brought in? Or
there's a lot of regional trailers, because they're not super easy to transport across country. You got to load 6 of them up on a thing. So a lot of times the trailer relationships are more regional. I think you're probably referring to the Family Marine Channel, Tom up there.
Yeah.
I like his videos. He's a good guy. I like how he shares it. Of course, he's biased because he's trying to sell stuff, but he tries to keep his bias out of it seems. And I think he does a great job sharing information. But so in your area, there'll be a handful of trailer manufacturers, and most dealers will have a relationship with one, two, maybe three of them. I know I'm in the Carolinas, so I'm not super far from you. But there's a few trailer manufacturers that will sell almost factory direct. So if you do some sniffing around on the internet, pontoon trailers for sale, look on Craigslist. You may find a relationship where you can save $500, $700 by going with one of those direct outlets. I'm trying to think of the one that is they build them and then we'll sell them directly to you. Whereas like Shorelander or Easy Loader will build it and they'll only sell to a dealer. They won't sell direct to a consumer.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of I'll email you if I can come up with it, because there's one that I know a lot of dealers here, or a lot of people in the Carolinas use, and I want to say they come from somewhere in Tennessee maybe. So let me see if I can track that down for you. The name's just escaping me right now.
Fantastic. And last but not least, I guess there's a couple other things. Like somebody would talk about these tunes come with a keel. You want to make sure you got a keel on the tune. And,
yes. Yeah, I should have included that in there. With the 115 and the speeds that you'll be running, 20, 25, 30 miles an hour, you'll want a full length keel on the tune as well. What that is it's like, think of like a little triangle that goes pretty much the full length of the bottom of the tune. And what that does is that's going to allow your boat to track straight. And versus not having it, if you think about all that water rushing over just this round surface, it can get a little bit squirrely, and you don't have, at speeds, you don't have, a wave is going to push you around a little bit, where that full length keel is going to give you a perfectly straight line to run as you're cruising at speeds. It also, I don't know, but if there's any debris in the water, a little log or something like that, that full length keel is going to give you a little bit more protection on the pontoon from getting a puncture, because it's usually going to hit at that lowest point.
A little bit more structure, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if you go watch, I think it's in most of my how to buy a used pontoon video, I show the keel, and you'll see it. And once you know what it looks like, you'll be able to just pop in a boat and see if it's there from most pictures even. It
might have been. I might have seen it in one of your videos, and that's why I wrote it down.
Yeah, yeah, good. But yeah, I would say with that 115, it would, on a 50 horsepower, okay, you're not going fast enough for it really to matter. But if you're pulling tubes and you're going 20, 25 miles an hour, you want to have that. You want to track a little bit straighter and have a little bit more protection as well.
Okay, and I guess the last thing they had written down was skirting. What is skirting?
Skirting. Okay, so I'm assuming this is what you're talking about. But when they build the pontoon, okay, they start with the tune. They put on the brackets that are welded to the tune to go from a round surface to a flat surface. From those brackets, they're going to mount the cross members to there. They're either going to be bolted down in almost every case. Sometimes the brackets on the tube to those sometimes they call them risers, to the bracing, are the almost the floor joists. They're going to be either spaced brackets or they'll be a full length piece. If they're spaced brackets, what the manufacturers do is they put a aluminum skirting around it, so it finishes it off, and it looks nicer. But two, then you can't tell that they're not doing that full length bracket across, which is a little bit sturdier, a little more durable. So if you were to look at like a Harris or a Barletta in their construction, they've got this full length tube on both sides of the pontoon. to give them a flat surface to mount. And they don't use any skirting because that's a full length piece and it looks real nice. That skirting is just a finished piece so that on a, let's say a Sun Tracker or a Sweetwater, or some of the more value brands, they're going to have that skirting just to finish it off and make it look nice so that you're not seeing those individual brackets.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your time. I think that's all I had. And if you could send me that email, I'd appreciate it. And if I got any other questions, I can reach out, correct?
That absolutely. Check out, you may want to check out the First Time Boat Buyer Academy. If you haven't, feel free to comment on any of the videos, leave questions there. And then you've got my email as well. And would love to hear how it all turns out and what you end up with.
Thank you, boss.
All right. Take care, Mike.
Bye.
Let's pull up the anchor and run this podcast back to the dock. We'll be back again with another helpful and fun episode next time. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, visit boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/guest, and I'll help offer insights into your boat research and shopping experience. Also, we'd appreciate it if you took just 2 minutes to rate and review this podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. It helps others find us so we can help more boaters. By the way, if you want to ensure you find the perfect boat at the lowest possible price so you can buy with 100% confidence, visit boatbuyerssecretweapon.com/academy for a short video and all the details. Now, before we go, I want to leave you with a few first-time boating tips for when you own your new boat. Number 1, know your local boating laws, basic navigation rules, and how to operate your boat safely. It'll make boating even more fun for everyone. 2, be aware of your wake at all times and pay attention to no wake zones because you are responsible for your wake. When maneuvering at slow speeds, you can put out an enormous wake. If going slow, be courteous, save some fuel, and drop down to idle speed, just in forward gear to ensure there is no wake. This could save you an expensive ticket and will keep you from being that guy on your waterway. Number 3, boats do not have headlights. They have docking lights, specifically made for seeing in tight quarters and docking. Do not turn your docking lights on while cruising down the water. It can blind other boaters and is very dangerous and, again, could save you an expensive ticket. Number 4, follow the maintenance schedule for your boat. Change the oil, impeller, gear lube, winterize if you need to winterize in your area. Inspect your trailer tires, bearings, and grease the hubs if you're a trailer boater to ensure you don't experience expensive and unnecessary repairs that will impact your boating time. Number 5, always double check your plug is in, your battery is charged, and the fuel is full before heading out for a day on the water. It could just save your boating day. And if you're a trailer boater, I've got a few extra tips. Number 1, at the boat ramp, prepare your boat, your gear, and your guests in the staging area. Then, when you're ready, back down the ramp, unload the boat, head to the parking lot, and right back down to your boat to be fast and courteous to your fellow boaters and don't tie up that ramp unnecessarily. Next, use transom tie-down straps when trailing your boat. Very bad things can happen if you don't, and they do happen. 3, check everything in the boat is secure before heading down the road. Seat cushions, gear, keys, towels, even tubes and lily pads can get blown out when pulling your boat down the highway or interstate. And most important, have fun. Enjoy your boat and get on the water as much as possible because life truly is better on a boat. Until next time, this is your friend in boating, Captain Matt.